Hey, where's he? Oh, there you are.
Episode 2.
Shoot, I forgot we're live. People are probably listening to us.
That's okay. Inside Vaping does it all the time.
Yeah, it's all right.
And I'll edit it out in post.
All right, so here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of VCCLive. My name is Kevin Skipper, and along with Jay DeLuca from Massachusetts, Jay DeLuca, apologies, Jay, and Nick Green from California, we are your host for VCCLive. Welcome back for episode 2. Hopefully you got a chance to watch last week's episode, youtube.com/vapingcc. It's also available on a podcast format at smokefreeradio.com, so make sure you check that out. We had a pretty good discussion last week about the FDA deeming regulations, and this week we are going to continue kind of where we left off, how that affects state and local level advocacy, what we should not be doing with the state and local level. We're going to talk for a few seconds about Samantha somebody. She's, anyway, you'll see. I guess she has a show on PBS and thought it would be funny to make fun of a product that's going to save millions of lives. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then we have a little snippet from PBS NewsHour that was out within the last week or so, I think. And they had Mitch Zeller, the director for the Center for Tobacco Products with the FDA. And and then we'll have some final thoughts from each of us. And we hope you guys have a lunch, have a snack, sit back. I wouldn't say grab a beer because it's still lunchtime on Friday. But hey, you never know wherever you're at. Maybe it's 5 o'clock. So grab a drink, relax, learn something, and use that knowledge. So, Jay, why don't you tell everyone what you've been up to the last week, and then we'll get an intro from Nick, and then we'll get right into it.
All I've been doing for about 60 hours this week is preparing for this show.
Yeah, I believe that. Anything going on in Mass?
Not lately. I met with the chairwoman of the Public Health Committee in the House of Representatives in Massachusetts a few weeks ago. So what I've been doing is I've been trying to put together, she actually requested, which was very smart of her, some studies for me to forward to her. So I've been putting together some of those studies. Most of them are generated through CASA, but I've been writing up, some summaries of those and just preparing to email them off to her because they are currently looking to rehash a Senate version of a bill in the House in the coming weeks or months. So we're getting in at the ground floor and making sure that vaping isn't destroyed at the state level here in Mass.
That's awesome. Good job, guys. Nick, how's things been for you? What have you been up to?
Good. Really busy. Spent last weekend at the VPX event in Las Vegas. That's the one that ECC puts on. Mm-hmm. Really good event. A lot of advocacy going on. All the groups were there. Not Blowing Smoke was there. Connolly was there speaking. Militia was there speaking. And it was really good. I was surprised. I mean, not necessarily surprised, but a lot of people were talking. I mean, literally everybody I talked to asked me about the FDA deeming regulations or what's happening in California or what's happening in Indiana or the New Jersey flavor ban. Like, it was at the top of every conversation that I either started or just wandered into. And it's good to see that kind of awareness, I guess, at a big event when right behind you there are girls throwing free T-shirts out. Yeah. And then there's actually people ignoring that because they want to talk about something far, far more important. So it was a really good cool. Yeah,
it is. Hopefully it keeps up.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised.
I'll have to say, though, that as an event organizer, it's difficult to get people to attend the advocacy sessions that you do. And it's a little bit disheartening for me that it's taken this long for people to get interested. But, that's just my opinion.
There was one day on the second day, I don't know if you know Kurt from CCI, but Kurt had this brilliant idea to get a large group of people, talk to the event organizers, and shut down the entire event for 15 minutes so that we could all go to the stage to listen to the speakers. 15 minutes. And it kind of worked. We all walked around in a big mob and told all of the vendors, shut down your booth for 15 minutes. Shut it down. Just follow us to the stage. Shut down your booth. Leave all your stuff there. Shut down the booth. We're all going to the stage. And we got a large group of people, but the majority of the vendors were kind of confused. I'm not shutting down my booth for 15 minutes. So, we did our best, but Kurt was really militant about, we were yelling, shut your booth down, we're all going to the stage. So Kurt had a vision to shut the whole event down. We didn't quite pull it off, but we still got a lot of people. More than I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
To sit and listen to people talk. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah,
so,
I learned a long time ago that it's very difficult to get everybody to do the same thing at one time. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So if you can get a majority, that's a win, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
All right. So last week we talked, and Nick was at VPX, so he wasn't with us last week. But last week, Jay and I pretty much talked about the FDA deeming regulations. We talked about HR 2058, Cole Bishop. HR 2058 has picked up a few more co-sponsors this week. And again, I'm going to reiterate what I said last week. HR 2058 is technically still a bill, and it is still getting co-sponsors, and it is still something that we could probably use in future legislative strategies. Right now, it's all Republicans. I think they're up to 58, but it's never going to be law. So the only thing that we have going for us at this point is Cole Bishop to hopefully change the predicate date, the grandfather date, and keep vaping around so that we can basically kick the can down the road and keep things alive so we can work on a legislative strategy with the president who will most likely sign the legislation. So, that's mainly what we covered last week, Nick. And we want to talk this week a little bit about how does that affect state and local advocacy. And I'm just going to give you my take on it real quick, and then we'll go to you guys and see what you've been facing where you're at. I'm in Florida, obviously. So we've had a pretty good past 3 sessions. We have a really good lobbyist here through Vista and the FSFA, and we're keeping an eye on it. Obviously, we always need more money to help fund that effort. So if you're a business in Florida, hop on flsmokefree.org. But I think the states, what they're going to do is probably use this time to, while we're all focused on something else, try to slip some things through on us over the course of the next year. So what we really need to do is keep our eye on, and I know everybody is just engulfed right now in the FDA deeming regulations, as they rightly should be, because it will destroy the industry, and the things that will happen in the state may hurt the industry, but unless they do something really big in a state like Indiana did, I don't know if it's going to cripple it like the FDA deeming regulations will, but they can certainly hurt us. What do you guys, so I'll just let me tell you really quickly what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, and there may be more stuff out there, but there's a New Jersey flavor ban out, some legislation. There's a Minnesota 30 cents a milliliter proposed tax, which just a quick comment on that. Where does Minnesota think they're going to get the money from if the FDA puts everyone out of business? You would think that they would be pressuring the FDA not to put everyone out of business so that they can collect their tax. But anyway, that's another point. Massachusetts, Jeff, let us know what's happening in Massachusetts. California, they have just passed 21 and up that's signed into law by Governor Brown. Thanks a lot for that, Governor Brown. 21 and up, and then basically what happens is when a state sees somebody doing something in a different state, they say, we should do that in our state. So
especially if it's successful.
Yeah, following that, we have Rhode Island, Illinois, and Massachusetts. I think all 3 have 21 and up provisions right now. So I'll tell you my thoughts on that in just a few minutes. But Jay, what do you see going on? Maybe you can fill us in a little bit more on Mass, what's happening there?
Well, I did allude to it a little bit at the beginning of the show. But there was just a Senate bill passed through the Senate that, among other things, lumps vaping in with traditional tobacco. Obviously, we're not a fan of that. Now, what happens in Massachusetts is kind of strange. Once a Senate bill passes, it basically goes nowhere until the House adopts it. And we met with the chairwoman of the Public Health Committee in the House in Massachusetts, and she said the only thing that she's after right now is moving to 21 plus. That's the only thing she's after. Now she has given us a grandfather date clause, so she's perfectly willing to acquiesce to a grandfather date to going 21 plus, and we're moderately okay with that. But we did implore with her that vaping should not be lumped in with traditional tobacco. Please give it its own definition, because what can happen is once we're lumped in with regular tobacco, then it becomes a PR nightmare. Anytime they want to raise taxes, anytime they want to add taxes to vapor products, it just ends up getting lumped in with tobacco. And it becomes very difficult to, from a PR perspective, to explain to people that, there's a difference in the ways that people perceive tobacco harm reduction versus just lumping everything in, like cigars, cigarettes, all that stuff, all the combustible tobacco products.
Again, they're following suit with the federal government. They're saying, hey, the federal government says this is a tobacco product now.
Well, this was all before the deeming regs were released.
Yeah, but I think they saw the writing on the wall. And
they may have, but at the same time, you could tell during the debates in the Senate that they don't understand the difference. They just see nicotine and
right.
That's all they see. They see nicotine, that equals tobacco, lump it all in. And there was actually an amendment that was proposed to the initial bill that would have given vapor products its own definition, and the Senate just voted it down.
Wow.
Without debate.
Real quick, I'll tell you my thoughts on that. What is the government saying when they say we're going to protect people up to the age of 21? First of all, if you're 18 years of age in the United States, you're legally an adult. You can sign contracts. You can enter the military and fight and die for your country. You are an adult. You're responsible for your actions. You commit a crime, you're going to jail.
I agree.
Why in the hell would I need the government to tell me what I can and cannot choose to do with my life? So first of all, that pisses me off that they're even considering changing it from 18 to 21. And then secondly, is everyone over 21 written off? Are we nothing to the government? I don't understand their philosophy on that. It's bullshit. I mean, it's just complete. It's insane how they think.
It is.
When you turn 21, do you automatically get some immunity to cancer from smoking tobacco? No, you don't.
Well, philosophically, I agree with you 100%. 100%. Age of majority should be age of majority across the board.
Absolutely. Nick, what do you think about that? Because they just did that in California.
Yeah, they just did it in California. And that's an interesting point that I never really thought of before, Kevin, where you say, is everyone 21 and over just written off? Like, everyone.
Is it some magic number at 21 where you're like godlike and you don't get hurt?
Yeah, some magical number. It doesn't make any sense to me. They just did it in California. Additionally, in California, a lot of stuff passed in California. We are a tobacco product in California. You have to be 21. If you run a shop, you have to go through a costly and lengthy process to get these tobacco licenses, and there are varying levels of prices for tobacco licenses depending on what your shop is doing. If you're building coils, that's a different one. If you're sampling juices, that's a different one. If you do distribution, that's a different one. There's a couple of California vendors I know that are already moving out of state just because they couldn't afford these licenses to run as a tobacco company. And, someone had just emailed, Ruby and I do a podcast, and someone had just emailed the podcast email saying, hey, I'm 19. I live in California. Are we doing anything to fight this legislation? And pretty much the last SFATA meeting, the SoCal SFATA meeting, nothing was talked about as far as like fighting back. It was just all talking about, this is a law now. Here's how we have to, comply to it. So unfortunately, once the governor signs it, it's a law. It's a law.
I don't quit until I'm dead. So I think California, you guys can absolutely. I know it's more difficult, and California's a different animal. It's like its own thing, but it's still a representative government. It's still a representative democracy.
Right. Absolutely.
You can vote the ass. Who almost said it bad. You can vote the people out. They are still in office, and they deserve a little bit of respect, I guess. But you can vote them out, and you can absolutely change the law. Do not. I hate it when people they just. You can't just accept what the government forces down your throat. This is a representative democracy. We're not a totalitarianship. I mean,
No.
it's not done
Yeah.
until it's done. Until you quit or die. Anyway, Jay, you had something?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's a deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a deeper subject than than as it relates to vaping.
Jay,
I was just going to say, we covered this last week. We're allowed to swear on this podcast, so I don't know why you're censoring yourself.
Yeah, I'm not censoring myself. I do have a little bit of decorum for elected officials, even if I disagree with them. They are an elected official. I do not like Barack Obama's policies and politics. He's still the president, so I mean, he would still get the respect. I think the office deserves, not necessarily him. So. Do I respect and understand? Do I agree with what these people are doing in California? Absolutely not. But you're not going to get anywhere by calling them assholes and calling them names, because they're people just like we're people, and I think if you make enemies out of them, they're only going to dig their heels in the sand harder. And I was going to say fuck you harder, but it's probably the truth. I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, they're human beings with human nature. If you treat someone badly, they're not going to be your friend. They're going to recoil like a snake and bite your ass. So be careful what you say and how you treat people, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else in California? I mean, it's already bad enough, but anything else?
No, nothing else. Nothing else in California. That's all. That's all happening. That's all happening June 9th, I believe.
Is there a cutoff for people who are already, say, in that range between the 18 and 21, or is it people born after a certain date, maybe? Or
I think there is some leeway, but still some rules in place. And you know how if you are underage and you work at a restaurant, you can still work at the restaurant, but you can't go to the bar, and you can't handle liquor, and you can't serve beer and stuff like that. I think that if you are age 18 to 21 and you work in a shop in California, that you can work in that shop, but there's certain rules in place. Like, you can't handle liquids, you can't stock liquids, you can't sample liquids, you can't build atomizers, you can't do a certain number of things. You can still keep your job, assuming that the shop wants you to stay there and do half of your previous workload. But I think that if you're in that age range, you can still, if you're working at a shop, you can continue working at the shop, but there's limitations as to what you can do. And then at that point, it would be up to your employer if they want to keep you on and have you do less work than everybody else.
Right. Which is probably not very likely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I guess to wrap up the whole state's talking point, and we only brought up a couple. I'm sure there are things going on in many, many more states across the country. I say it weekly, if you don't have a smoke-free association or some equivalent in your state, start one. There's plenty of information out there available to you, and there are plenty of people available out there that can help you get one up and running. You need to be organized in your states, because that's where it all starts. And again, I said it last week, educate yourself first, and then educate all your elected officials, including your locally elected officials, because they all know the people who are elected to the state House of Reps, state Senate. They know all the people who are your Congress people and U.S. senators. So start local and work your way up. But first, educate yourself and make sure that you're sharing facts with them and not hearsay, basically. So I think that pretty much wraps up the state and local level advocacy. It's local level beyond the state level, like cities and counties to track, would be way too hard for us to do on a 1-hour show every week. I guess we're relying on people who are out in the out on the ground in these districts to keep an eye on what's going on. And CASA has a really good calls to action page, so check out CASA.org and look for their calls to action. I think they actually have a program or something that they spent a lot of money on, that they've collected, through contributions to filter and gather information on different things that are happening across the country. So definitely check that out, CASA.org.
And they make their calls to action incredibly easy.
It takes seconds, a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, one of those things, like I said last week about companies. If a company doesn't want to get involved in advocacy or doesn't know what to do, the least you can do is give money or become a member to an organization. That's the very least you can do. As a consumer, the very least you can do is follow a CASA call to action. It's extremely easy. So definitely do that. So this week I saw, and I had heard about this a couple of months ago when it was going to happen. There's a lady named Samantha B. I guess she has a program on TBS. It's like a satirical comedy variety show or something like that. I've never watched it before, never heard of her. I guess she was looking for conventions to go to within the last 6 months and found Vape Northeast, which was in Connecticut, I think, about the same time that we had VCCT in Tampa, as a matter of fact. But anyway, she didn't even attend herself, apparently, after watching the video. She sent someone there with a film crew, and they took some footage, and they did a 5-minute and 18-second story on vaping. And I'm just going to play a very, very short clip. I don't want to give it any more. It doesn't deserve any more attention than it already has. But I just want to play this, and then we'll talk about it for a few minutes. So hopefully you guys, I don't know, maybe you'll have to watch it on the YouTube since we're having trouble with our thing right now. But
I was there.
I'm missing the party. Wait, what am I doing? Who is this man? This dinosaur has a really big tongue. Hey, you know what? Screw you, Big Tobacco. These guys are okay by me.
yeah, that's just a very, very short snippet. Nick, what do you think? You've been to a lot of events.
Yeah, I don't know. She's a little condescending, isn't she?
She is very condescending.
A little
They
condescending.
try to make some valid points, but it's like underhanded praise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's
oh, you
really
look slim today. It was saying basically you always look fat, but you look kind of slim today.
right.
But
right.
The vaping industry is fighting big tobacco. But then she shows minutes and minutes of clips of these people at the convention doing things that are what vapors do at conventions, I guess. And
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is somewhat representative of what happens at a lot of these conventions.
Well, in my final thoughts, I'll talk about that. I don't think it's unfortunate as we've been making it out to be the last couple of years. But anyway, this is the type of stuff that people who know nothing about vaping, nothing, they probably don't even know people who smoke, but they still have a voice in America, and they still can contact their representatives, and even maybe some elected officials might know absolutely nothing about vaping. And then they see this story. And I think Greg Conley actually did a pretty lengthy interview with her, and I watched the whole thing. I didn't see Greg Conley appear not once in it. Excuse me. So you can tell by the type of show that it is, I think, what it was going to turn out to be. And as an event organizer, I would have told them, thanks but no thanks.
That's exactly what I was with Nick Bissett and Phil Basardo at VNE, and we saw the crew come in, and we were just dumbfounded at the fact that the organizers would let them in, first of all, and how many people were actually willing to talk to them. And of course, the crew was going after the goofiest people, looking for the most attention. So obviously, they were able to get a rise out of people pretty easily, and the producers were egging them on and all that. Nick, Phil, and myself, we ran the other way. Every time we saw that crew, we were gone. But we were very surprised, and frankly, surprisingly, I thought the piece was going to be a lot worse than it turned out. At least Samantha B did kind of mention that big tobacco, as a result of these regulations, big tobacco is going to destroy, the cottage industry.
You think that people that don't know anything about vaping took that away from that video? I don't.
No, but it was there. Like I said, it was better than I thought it was going to be, because I've seen Samantha B both on the Daily Show and on her regular this weird time slot on TBS thing that she's got going on. I've seen the show. I know where her politics are. So when I saw that camera crew show up, I thought, "Holy hell, we're fucked." But it actually was somewhat balanced, even though it was, like as you guys said, very condescending.
All right. Anyway, I think it's we have to do a better job with outreach and public relations. We have to, as people who want to save this industry. I organize events, and I like having a diverse crowd at the events. And, there are doctors and lawyers and judges and elected officials who smoke cigarettes. It's not just the type of people that she represented in this video. And everyone who smokes cigarettes, I don't care what you look like, what your hobbies are, if you choose to be covered in tattoos or wear a suit to work every day, everyone deserves the right to try vaping to get off of cigarettes. Everyone does.
Of course.
So I know she's doing it for entertainment value. I don't know. I just want to say a lot of things.
You might feel different. You might feel different if you saw all the scenes that they were filming that didn't make it in.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I almost said when you said Nick, Phil, and I just ran whenever we saw the camera crew. I wish you wouldn't have. I wish everybody who had some.
They didn't want to talk. They don't want to talk. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to talk to normal people. They wanted to talk to people who were all hyped up, saw a camera crew and got excited. That's who they wanted to talk to.
Well, they will never be at a VCC event. I promise you that. And if they do, the only person they're talking to is me. So.
And I appreciate that.
Anyway.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, seriously.
But they would never come. They would never go to a VCC event.
Yeah, I guess not. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's far too normal of an event.
Okay, so I think that's exhausted enough on that. That's I just think the takeaway from that is, guys, come on, we got to do a better job. When you see a news crew or something like that. Actually, the one guy I'm not going to go back to, but he had a long beard and a black shirt on. He made some valid points about smokers and stuff like that, and then she immediately right after that mocked it. So anyway, that's what you can expect from a show like that, and why anyone would expect anything different.
What event was that?
Vape Northeast in Connecticut is the same weekend as Tampa, the VCC Tampa event.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I also saw this week someone had shared PBS NewsHour did a story on vaping, and this was, I think it came out May 6th, the day after, it was before the deeming regs were published in the Federal Register, but the day after they came out publicly. So let me press play on this and flip over real quick, and again, you guys are going to have to watch, and I'm not sure if you can hear, but anyway, here you go.
There'll be no more e-cigarette and cigar sales to people under the age of 18. Federal oversight of the growing industry was announced today by the Food and Drug Administration. They've been around since 2006, but until now, they were largely unregulated. E-cigarettes turn nicotine into an inhalable liquid vapor, but without the tobacco in regular cigarettes.
With blue e-cigs, there's no tobacco smoke, only vapor.
Ads for the products tout benefits using celebrity endorsements, like this one from actress Jenny McCarthy. In fact, there's no scientific consensus on benefits or potential harm. But Health and Human Services Secretary Sylvia Burwell says the industry will now be regulated, citing its rapid growth among teens.
Between 2011 and 2015, the percentage of high school students who smoked e-cigarettes has skyrocketed over 900%.
I'm going to pause that there so we can talk about that. And I'll probably pause it when I get to a point that I think we should break down a little bit better. I think the study she's referring to asked middle and high school students, have you tried an electronic cigarette in the past 30 days?
Right. That's the CDC study. Yeah.
Skyrocketing to 900%. Again, this is why I don't like using statistics, because you can find statistics to back up any point of view you want to find to back up, whether they're right or wrong. And her statistics are not correct. And so I guess the point of, but people, she is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. People put credence to what she has to say. They're going to say that is a fact. It's a fact. And it's not a fact. The fact is, some students may have tried an e-cigarette one time within the last 30 days and never touched another one again, but they still got included in that statistic.
Right. Exactly right.
And yeah. So.
And on top of that, the industry, she talks about the dates between, 2011, 2015. vaping was still very much in its infancy in 2011. The industry grew tremendously between then and now. Obviously, you're going to see skyrocketing use across the board because it's a brand new industry. So it's misleading to turn that into a scare statistic.
Do you know what she failed to mention?
How
youth cigarette
much smoking
rates
has gone down? Yeah,
plummeting.
right.
So anyway.
And the other thing
Meanwhile,
in
hookah
that
use-
whole piece leading up to the Mitch Zeller interview, the newscasters almost wholesale just buy into the fact that this is all about youth
Correct.
nicotine use.
Yeah.
That's all they focus on. They don't even talk about adults at all.
Right. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. We're gonna have some opinions on that.
Mm-hmm.
Usage has risen significantly among young people, and cigar smoking continues to be a problem among high schoolers. Together, that means millions of kids are being introduced to nicotine every year. A new generation hooked on a highly addictive chemical.
Manufacturers, many of them small companies, will have to undergo a lengthy federal review in order to stay on the market. In response, Gregory Conley, president of the American Vaping Association, said today, quote, if the FDA's rule is not changed by Congress or the courts, thousands of small businesses will close in 2 to 3 years. House Republicans have their own answer, a bill to curb retroactive safety reviews for e-cigarettes and cigars. Meanwhile, some states have launched ad campaigns against teenage use of e-cigarettes. And yesterday, California became the second state in the nation, after Hawaii, to raise the smoking age to 21. The use of e-cigarettes.
So this is kind of the lead up to the Mitch Zeller. And Mitch Zeller is going to be on live with the reporter here in just a minute, and we're going to watch that real quick. But the whole story is tainted in a certain direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Even before Mitch Zeller comes on, like you said. So
yeah, they threw us
except for the
one bone.
The one little quote
Yeah.
by Greg Conley. That was it.
Yeah, they threw us one little bone, and the rest of it was all about save the children, save the children, save the children.
Right.
Among youth keeps rising. The latest estimates from the CDC show about 2.5 million high school students or middle schoolers vaped at least once a month. Mitch Zeller is the FDA's point person on today's decision. He's the director of its Center for Tobacco Products, and he joins us now. So what's the exact health risk that you're trying to prevent?
No child, no teenager should be exposed to nicotine. Nicotine is addictive. E-cigarettes have nicotine in them. Kids should not be inhaling those products into their lungs. There's a separate debate about whether e-cigarettes have a public health benefit to some current cigarette smokers who might be able to use the product to transition away from harmful cigarettes. But there should be no harm reduction questions about kids. Kids should not be using e-cigarettes. And today's action will take this product out of the wild, wild west of unregulation into the world of being regulated.
So are you concerned that it could have a chilling effect on those people who are trying to transition away from conventional cigarettes using this as a way to step down?
That's a valid question, yeah?
I don't know. I can't hear it.
Okay. He said, basically, the reporter said, are you concerned about the regulations affecting cigarette smokers who are trying to be smoke-free, essentially, is what he said. That's a valid question.
Of course it is.
And I want you to hear what the director of the Center for Tobacco Products' response to that is.
FDA is a public health and consumer protection agency, and we will make policy where the science takes us. The fact is that 70% of all adult e-cigarette consumers today are still smoking cigarettes together with their e-cigarettes. So we don't know if they're transitioning away from cigarettes, or if along the way, if 70% of all adult e-cigarette users are still smoking cigarettes, they're losing interest in quitting conventional cigarettes.
So how do we measure all this? Where's the science behind exactly what's happening?
I'm letting you guys catch up.
70% of all adult e-cigarette users are cigarettes and losing interest in conventional cigarettes. So how do we measure all this? What's the science behind that?
So, yeah, they're setting policy that's going to kill an industry whose main purpose is to offer a better alternative to combustible tobacco. They're setting policy. And he's saying we don't have the science, which is a lie because we do. And he's saying there are 70% of dual users, which I think is an inflated number. I don't know where he pulled that out of his ass or what, but it's absolutely. I don't see that happening. Maybe some dual users for a period.
Even if it isn't an inflated number, that's good.
Right, dual use is still a net benefit.
Yeah, it's still a win. Cutting down your tobacco intake, 70% of smokers cutting down their tobacco intake is a good thing.
Right.
I would assume that those numbers are coming from C-store sales. So your big tobacco, cig-alike products, where big tobacco is actually encouraging dual use. Not from our wing of the industry. I would not think that they're actually polling people in our community as to whether or not they still use cigarettes, because the number would obviously be much lower.
Right.
How the behaviors are changing.
FDA is making a massive investment in what we call the regulatory science to get answers to two fundamental questions. Who is using products like e-cigarettes, and how are they being used? We are following 40...
They're doing a massive investment into who's using them and how they're being used. Don't you think they should put a massive investment into their own scientific research to verify what the Public Health England and Royal College of Physicians and multiple other studies have shown, which is that using electronic cigarettes is at a minimum 95% safer than smoking combustible tobacco? Don't you think they had a duty to do that prior to issuing FDA deeming regulations that's going to kill an industry?
Well,
I think they do. What do you think?
That's regulation in this century. Kill them all, let God sort them out. They don't have to have the proof ahead of time.
What do you think, Nick?
I mean, that it drives me insane, and it drives me insane that you even see that you can see these elected officials on the news talking about, oh well, we just don't know. Meanwhile, the Royal College of Physicians already said, yeah, we do know. We have all this information. Here's our official statement. They're at least 95%, if not more, safer than traditional combustible tobacco cigarettes, and their use should be encouraged. And people demonize things. We've demonized smoking for so long, and now that we have vaping, we're demonizing nicotine.
Right.
And there's a quote, it must have been at least a year ago, from Mitch Zeller himself,
right,
who was saying that, oh, well, maybe we need to, reevaluate how we look at nicotine, and this and the other. And it's like he's two different people.
Well, I mean, again, that's you show one thing so that you pacify your enemy, and then you do another. It's classic strategy, and that's, again, one of the things I talked about last week, and one of the things I'll mention again this week. Our strategies over the last 2, 3, 4 years have not been working. We've had very few successes and a whole shitload of failures.
Yeah.
So what do you do when your strategy is not working? Don't answer the same way again you did last week, Nick. You don't keep repeating it over and over again. You change your strategy. And if we know that these people are going to say one thing and do another, we need to be anticipating. It's like a chess game. What's their next move going to be, and how can we cut them off at the pass? And the sad thing about what you just said, Nick, this guy's not even an elected official. He's a public employee. His salary, which I'm sure is pretty large, is paid for by our taxes.
Right.
He has a duty to the administration, to Congress, to the American people as a public employee to do due diligence before issuing federal regulations that are going to cripple an industry and force people either back to combustible tobacco, which is going to be legal because it was on the market prior to February 15, 2007, which I find mind blowing. But he has an even higher duty to make sure that he knows his shit before he makes it something that's going to kill vaping in the United States anyway. Yeah. I have no respect for Mitch Zeller because, like you said, he talks out of both sides of his ass. And a couple of years ago, I actually used a quote from him on the VCCTN 2014 event that I did in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was a quote by him that said, this is paraphrasing, if a majority of combustible tobacco users were using electronic cigarettes, it would be good for the public health. That's what he said, and it was obviously more than 2 years ago because we were in Chattanooga. The last time was October of 2014. So he said one thing and did the exact opposite. And he had a chance. This man right here, Mitch Zeller, had a chance to do something great with his life, and he chose not to. And I think that's enough. I'm not going to finish the interview with him. We have about
there are a few points. I don't know. I don't know what you did and didn't play out of that interview, but to that specific point, you know, Zeller's stance in this interview is that switching the predicate date to 2016, he feels at this point would actually be bad for public health, whereas prior to the deeming regs, the FDA's stance was always that their hands were tied. We can't change the predicate date.
Well, and again, this goes back to what I'm saying about HR 2058. That's the administration's position. And like I said last week, we have 58 Republican co-presenters right now. I mean, co-sponsors of the bill. If today we got 60 Democrats to jump on board with HR 2058, the administration is still going to veto it. Period. They said that in the media interview they did the day after the regs came out that I sat in on with the FDA. It was I think Ms. Zeller was on it, a couple other people, and from the FDA. They've said that they and the administration will never agree to a change of the predicate date. So, the only way that we're going to be able to get some long-term fix to this problem and not short-term Band-Aid solutions is to get someone in office who will sign legislation that reclassifies vaping away from combustible tobacco. That's the truth.
Yeah, and another thing that presented itself in this interview, and some advocates have been discussing this, yes, there is no implicit flavor ban in the deeming regulations. However, as part of this interview, Mitch Zeller made he didn't mix any words when he said that the FDA very well could ban flavors simply through the application process.
Remember that clause I threw up on the screen last week? They can change the rules anytime they want to change the rules.
But that's not even changing the rules. They can simply
they can add regulations whenever they want to add regulations.
They can deny your application because they feel that this flavor is appealing to youth.
Right.
That's it.
What percentage would you guess of e-liquids in the market right now, Nick or Jay, is going to meet the FDA standard? Keep in mind they've allowed one PMTA through in the past I think 6 years out of thousands of applications. One. We talked about this last week again. Zero. None.
Yeah, zero.
I would say that only flavors that are available in closed systems. First
of all, it has to be substantial equivalent, which I don't think any substantial equivalent applications are going to go through. But substantial equivalent to what? What we had on the market in 2007, which was probably 90% PG.
2007 was
90% PG, 10% VG, if that.
And three piece.
I'm talking about just e-liquids right now. Just e-liquids. Almost all of it was Chinese e-liquid.
But it was all in closed systems.
So and now if you're trying to say, well, my product is a 60-40 or a 50-50 or a 70-30, they're going to say that's not substantially equivalent. The ratio of PG to VG is way off. Come back and try again. There goes your $1 million.
Right, but my point is that in closed systems, PG-VG ratio doesn't matter.
Gotcha. I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's enough. Did you have any other points that you took from it, Jay? There wasn't too much left.
Those were the big ones. It was interesting to me that Zeller. Well, not interesting. It was predictable to me that Zeller deflected questions about the onerous application requirements, and he started immediately talking about cigars for some reason. But right. other than that,
I didn't do that.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the interview, I think.
And
he just completely downplayed the industry effects. You know, how many shops are going to get shut down? How many manufacturers are going to get shut down?
Right.
Yeah.
So let's see. I had a point on that, and it's a point that not just Mitch Zeller, but every public employee who is anti-THR and every elected official that I've seen over the last couple of years who is anti-THR. And I posted about this yesterday on Facebook. Sometimes I have random thoughts, and I stop what I'm doing and post them because I'll forget them. So this is exactly what I posted, and tell me what you guys think. I don't know. Maybe I'm an asshole. Maybe I think about things wrong, but I don't think I do, obviously. But so I said, does the fact that I'm an adult and not a child exclude me from the government's regulatory protection? Where is it written that one citizen's life and liberty are more important than another, regardless of age? If I'm an asshole for thinking this way, then so be it. The save the children, quote unquote, argument is old and tired. Find something else to lean on, big brother. That, like the smokers you are condemning to their fate, is dead. Stop saying we're saving the children. Children are not dying from smoking combustible tobacco. Adults who have been smoking for decades are dying from combustible tobacco. Might you dissuade them from ever getting hooked on nicotine? Yes. And if that's a win in your book while you can sleep at night and hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying every year, there's something wrong with you. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. That makes absolute perfect sense to me. Perfect sense to me.
And I would just add that the e-cig and vaping industry are not the first to fall victim to this mentality either. I mean, this has been going on for decades. I know, but nothing with the potential public health impact of combustible tobacco. Save the children from a lot of other things, but nothing kills more people per year prematurely than combustible tobacco. Nothing. Possibly. Other industries have been able to fend off those attacks because they, frankly, they're more mature. And I mean that, they've been around longer. They've been exactly, literally mature. Mm-hmm. So I think, we're in a particularly strange scenario here where it's a brand new industry that's really, really getting hammered on both from a PR standpoint and a government standpoint. So to a certain extent, we have to be on our best behavior and we have to get really fucking organized. Right. Okay. Well, we got about 13 minutes left to complete the hour. We'll do, I guess, some final thoughts. I have one that I typed out because I didn't want to forget anything. Jay, what you got? Not to put you on the spot. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the themes of the show is don't forget about the states. So I would implore people to not forget that there are still state and municipal fights going on. In Massachusetts, in particular, when we look at the potential legislation coming down the pipe right now, it really isn't much of a threat when you put it up against what the FDA is looking at right now. Yeah, but it sets the stage. But exactly, it sets the stage. What you have to read between the lines. They're looking to lump vapor in with tobacco in Massachusetts. That in and of itself really doesn't mean much. However, when it comes to changes in taxation, it means a hell of a lot. Right. And in Massachusetts in particular, municipalities have been very, very damaging to the vaping market here. Each municipality is allowed to come up with their own rules regarding vaping products as well as tobacco products. So I would just implore people to pay attention to what's going on locally, and also pay attention, obviously, to what's going on federally. Support your national organizations and find out if there are local and state organizations in your area that you can also support. And sometimes you can do both at once. You can join a local or a state organization, and they will actually transmit funds to the national organization as part of their charter. So it's time to get involved. Get off your asses, everybody. While I'm thinking about it, while we're still on you, any comments or questions in the chat? Is anything going on there today? No, it was a lot of good comments, but no real questions directed to us. Yeah. Nick, you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Not really. I mean, we've been talking nothing but advocacy since it started for me when the day before the FDA regs came out, when Governor Jerry Brown signed in all that law into California. And ever since then, it's just been going nonstop. And I don't think it's any time to slow down now. I mean, it's easy to try to go back to business as usual. Mm-hmm. And when people do that, you kind of, and I said this in a vlog recently, just because you're not hearing about it constantly doesn't mean that any of this bad stuff has gone away. Like, it's all still there. So I think we need to keep awareness up. I did want to say something about the chat. There was someone inside vaping, and he had
James.
had a great comment that said there's an opportunity to use Mitch Zeller's words against him. Let non-vapers know that the FDA is spending huge amounts of taxpayer dollars to enact a prohibition that the FDA itself has not even studied. And I think that's brilliant, and that speaks to what Kevin was saying earlier. Is they've pushed through these laws and regulations on a subject that they haven't even studied yet. That they have admittedly don't have their own information, or they're not paying attention to the other information. And I don't think it's just vapors that should be upset about how these tax dollars are getting spent. And I just thought that was really cool. So,
that is
just stay active, keep the awareness up. Don't let it fade. For the first few days or so, for the first week or so, we were all really fired up. And then as time goes on, that it kind of sort of trails off a little bit.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start VCCLive. It's not like I don't have enough things to do already. I do. I have plenty to do. But I want to keep this in the forefront. I want to keep it in front of everyone's face, because something has happened to America over the last 50 years, and we've progressively given up a little bit more power at a time to the government. It's our power, people.
Yeah.
This is our country.
It's our power. It's our country.
The more we let you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Or you give the government an inch, they're going to take 1,000 miles. That's just the way it works. Stop.
Yeah.
Take it back.
Yeah. Stop. Yeah.
Anyway, so I have and this might not be a very popular, amongst some people, closing statements, but you know what? I don't care. I'm going to say it, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I just want you to understand the context of what I'm saying this in. And the context, I'll just preface it with this, is, and I'm going to repeat it again when I read it, stop focusing on insignificant things that spin our wheels and get us nowhere. This is exactly what the FDA and our opponents want us to do. They want us to focus on insignificant bullshit, trivial stuff, and not accomplish anything. That's what they want us to do. And that's what we're doing. Use your time and energy wisely to educate yourself and contact your elected officials. And now let me go back to the beginning and read what led up to that. I used to think that cloud competitions and vape trick competitions, well, when I first started vaping, I thought they were cool. And then when I got into advocacy, I thought, this is probably not good for our public image, and the FDA is going to hammer us on this. If I can only know now what I knew then. I used to think that cloud competitions and vape tricks, competitions, stuff like that, was something that was going to hurt our chances of legitimizing vaping. Now it's clear that there is nothing we could have done in the FDA's eyes for vaping to be legitimized. It doesn't matter if you're vaping a cigarette or blowing clouds, they're going to look at us the same way. Wasting energy fighting amongst ourselves about what we think their perception is of us is futile. They don't care. The times of trying to act a certain way, look a certain way, be different than who we are to appease a government agency who could give a shit less has passed. We as an industry and community need to fight fire with fire. We've been trying to clean up our image so we can feel honored to sit at the table with the dirtiest people in the room, sharks wearing suits and ties. Enough. Don't take this to mean be disrespectful and get yourself featured on a low-rate satirical variety show. Hint, hint, like we played earlier. We still have a lot of work to do on our image. I'm stating this to open your eyes so you can see the big picture, here and now, with regulations pending. Stop focusing on insignificant things that spin our wheels and get us nowhere. This is exactly what they want us to do. Use your time and energy wisely to educate yourself and contact your elected officials. And that was my final thoughts.
Yeah, that's good.
You're here.
You should write that down, Kevin, and then send it to me.
I did write
it's
that
all
down.
It's all over Facebook.
Okay.
I don't want people to take it the wrong way and say, oh, wow, we can pretty much do whatever we want to do. We can act how we want to act. I'm just saying, stop focusing on insignificant things like if I go to this vape convention and I blow a cloud, is that going to make the FDA mad? The FDA is going to do whatever they want to do, and that's perfectly clear now. So be yourself. If you look a certain way, you're still a citizen of the United States. You still have an elected representative locally and nationally. You don't have to fit a certain profile everyone's life means something is my point, I guess. And don't change who you are, especially when it's not going to have an impact on what they think of us anyway.
We're all a firework.
Thanks, Jay.
Full flower.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. We got about 5 minutes left,
Yeah.
but I think we're going to wrap it up. This is episode 2 of VCC Live. It's yet untitled, but I'll fix all that. And Jay will do some editing, and it will be up and available hopefully later today on smokefreeradio.com. So if you don't have YouTube or don't want to watch it on YouTube or want to watch it or listen to it on SoundCloud or Spreaker or something like that, you can do that. But you can always check it out, youtube.com/vapingcc. And we'll see you guys next week for episode 3. We're going to be working on, and we'll announce it on our Facebook page. If you haven't liked it, it's too long of a link to tell you what it is, but I'll put it down there. And yeah, so check it out, like the page, share it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can use that education to go out now and get involved. Remember, you don't have to do everything, but you do have to do something. Get involved.
Oh, that's good.